This is a Channel 8 special report. We take you now to the Memorial Building in Framingham, where Senator Ted Kennedy and President Bill Clinton appeared to address a very enthusiastic and supportive crowd.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. 2 nights ago, we learned 2 nights ago, we learned what's in Bill Weld's heart. Nothing. 2 nights ago, we reminded the people of Massachusetts what it means to be a Democrat. And next week, we're going to learn one more time about Bill Weld, and we're going to learn twice about Mitt Romney. Because let me tell you, let me put it in the simplest terms possible. I have a 9-year-old son. I don't want my son growing up in Mitt Romney and Bill Weld's Massachusetts, and we're not going to let it happen. Thank you. I'm proud to be here with my running mate, Bob Massey. I'm proud. I'm proud to be here with the best United States Senator in America, Ted Kennedy, who's going to be reelected on November 8th. And I'm proud, we are all proud to be Democrats and to be Americans again, because America is not only trying again under Bill Clinton, America is achieving again. Think about it. The childhood immunization law. The education bill he just signed. The protection of a woman's right to choose through clinic access. The family leave bill, the Brady bill, and deficit reduction. Bill Clinton's gotten more done in 2 years than Reagan and Bush could have dreamed of in 100 years. And we're here to make sure the president still knows that we in Massachusetts, we still believe in a place called hope, and we always will. Now, I'm proud to introduce to you your next speaker, your congressman, someone who's leading the fight to lead with Bill Clinton and his positive program of change for America, Congressman Ed Markey.
What I would like to do now is to ask each of you to give a warm Framingham, Metro West, Massachusetts welcome to the best and most powerful senator in the United States Senate, Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts. And with him, the President of the United States of America, We thank you. And we thank you, Mr. President, for being here today to support Ted Kennedy and the rest of the Democratic ticket. They provide strong leadership for Massachusetts and for the country. They are moving the nation forward towards our vision of the future, a bright future, where working families are better off, where children are given hope and greater opportunities, and where the elderly are providing the ability to live their twilight years in dignity and grace. But the Republicans have trotted out their own plan, a competing vision. You've heard about their contract on America, the one which 300 Republicans stood on the steps of the Capitol last month and signed their names and their party to a contract on America's future. What is their vision? Let me tell you what it is. The Republican contract is a scheme dreamed up by Reagan-esque Rip Van Winkles, who awakened 14 years of ideological slumber to present America with the same old tired ideas. That's right, my friends. Read their lips. No new ideas. You remember more deficits, more cuts in education, more threats to Social Security and Medicare, more threats to the environment, Star Wars, tax breaks for the wealthy, pink slips for the middle class, and meaner, nastier streets. The Republican Party is in violation of the first law of holes. When you're in one, stop digging. If the Republicans take over the United States Senate, do we want Bob Dole as the Senate Majority Leader? Do we want Orrin Hatch as the Chairman of Judiciary? Do we want Jesse Helms as the Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee? Now listen to this. The first 2 years of the Clinton administration, President Clinton has put our fiscal house in order. He passed a sweeping crime bill, put 100,000 more police on the streets. He banned assault weapons. He passed the Brady bill. He has given us a good economic strategy for America's future. He has passed a family and medical leave bill. He has signed a national service program so kids can give something back to their family. He's had a White House signing ceremony with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. He has stared down Saddam Hussein and made him blink. He's passed NAFTA and returned President Aristide peacefully to Haiti. There is only one thing that separates Senator Kennedy, President Clinton, and the Democratic Party from the Republicans on every one of those issues, and there's only one thing that separates them. We were right and they were wrong. In December of 1992, just before Bill Clinton took office, the unemployment rate in Massachusetts was 7.9%. Today, it is 5.2%, and it is 4.2% out here in Metro West. And when it comes to fighting for jobs and education and health care and Massachusetts working families, Ted Kennedy is always the leader in that charge. He has been a friend and an ally of the President in all of the great legislative battles of the last 2 years, creating jobs, civil rights for women and minorities, reducing the deficit, national service, the crime bill, education reform, getting $250 million to reduce water rates in Massachusetts. On every one of those issues and many more, Ted Kennedy has fought each and every fight for us. He has consistently fought at the fight that working families would fight if they could go to Washington and be heard. He is our voice. We need him in Washington to continue to battle and to win. Now, for months now, Mitt Romney has been attacking Senator Kennedy. He and his crowd are distorting Ted Kennedy's record of achievement. He tells everyone he meets that it's time for a change. Well, Mr. Romney, the people of Massachusetts have a message for you today. The change we need is right here. We want Senator Kennedy to continue to battle for change in the United States Senate. Does anybody believe that Mitt Romney will fight for a decent minimum wage? Does anyone believe that Mitt Romney's going to fight for affordable and decent health care? Does anyone believe that Mr. I'm going to abolish the Department of Education will fight to improve education in this country? I give you the next senator from Massachusetts fighting for his best 6 years, Ted Kennedy.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Ed Markey. Thank you. Thank you, Ed Markey. I have a question for you. Thank you, Mr. President. All right, I have a question for you. Thank you, Ed Markey. Is this Clinton country? It is. And after we all do what needs to be done for the next 2.5 weeks, and we elect Mark Roosevelt as our governor, and you re-elect old Kennedy in the United States Senate, we're going to start on the '96 campaign to elect Bill Clinton as our re-elect him on the next one. Well, we'll take it. Thank you very much. We thank you, Mr. President, and I've been proud to stand with you on the issues which are important to the families of Massachusetts: good, decent jobs, good quality education, a reform of our health care system, doing what needs to be done to make our streets safe and secure, clearing up our environment, fighting for the best of human rights at home and overseas, and we have been standing against Phil Gramm, Bob Dole, Jesse Helms, and we say we do not need. My opponent. We have two different visions about the future, about who will represent Massachusetts. There's a guy. Is that Freddie Fitzgerald out here? Let me thank, we have two different visions. One who believes that he can make a difference in the United States Senate, building and forging the kinds of coalitions that we celebrated today when we passed the most extensive education program that we have passed in 30 years under the leadership of Bill Clinton. We have that kind of vision. Are we going to send someone? Are we going to send someone that's going to build on the building blocks that have been established over the past 2 years that's seen our unemployment go down? We have to do better. We have to make sure that they are good jobs. Are we going to build on that record? That is what I represent, going to the United States Senate, fighting for working men and women, rebuilding our economy, strengthening our education and training system. That is what I stand for. And we have a different vision. We have a different vision of my opponent that believes in the old trickle-down economic theory. Well, it didn't. Well, 2 years ago, this country voted for a change by electing Bill Clinton. It said no to the Reaganism, no to the Reaganism and the Bush economic policies, and we in Massachusetts don't want those kinds of policies under Romney in the 1990s. We don't want that kind of a senator in the United States Senate. He favors a tax cut, and I oppose, for the wealthiest individuals in this country. He opposes, and I favor, an increase in the minimum wage for hardworking men and women so that it can be a livable wage. I am pro-choice, and he is multiple choice. Multiple choice. But, Mr. President, I want to tell you something that's been happening. I've learned something new in politics. It isn't just flip-flop, it's flip-flop-flip. First of all, he favored the crime bill that you provided the leadership for, Mr. President, and is going to make such a difference to families and communities across our Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He favored it initially, and then he opposed it, and then he favored it. And then, you know, the issue came on choice. He was against it, and then he came out for it. Then there was the question of the minimum wage. He sent one note to his financial contributors and responded to Sam Donaldson a different way. He was one way on minimum wage, and then he was against the minimum wage. We just had the signing of the President's reform education bill. When he was asked about that initially, he said he couldn't make up his mind. Now he's for it. And I want to tell you, Mr. President, now he's for family leave. Now he looks like he's for minimum wage. Now he's for education reform. If we give him 2 more weeks, he may even vote for me, because those are the things that I am for. Let's give a Framingham, a Massachusetts, welcome to a great president. Massachusetts friends, we love you, Mr. President. Give Bill Clinton a presidential welcome here.
Thank you. 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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I love you too, and I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much for this wonderful, warm, enthusiastic, passionate welcome, and thank you for your commitment to re-elect Senator Ted Kennedy on November 8th. I want you to send Kevin O'Sullivan and John Tierney down there to help us in the House of Representatives to move this country forward. And I want to congratulate Mark Roosevelt on giving debating lessons to the Republican Party in the last few days. I loved Ed Markey's speech, except he said everything that Ted and I wanted to say. And he said it very well. It was a great defense of a great record by a great supporter of progress in this country. I thank Ed Markey. I want to say one thing a lot of you may not know. This is serious. I want to thank Ed Markey because last spring he called my attention to the fact that we had 1 million military-style assault weapons coming into this country from China. And he said we ought to stop it, and we did, and I thank him for that. And I also want to thank him for paving the way for the information superhighway in Framingham and all along Route 128, the birthplace of high technology and the future of the information superhighway. Thank you, Ed. You know, ladies and gentlemen, until the last few days, this had the earmarks of an unusual election where people were in danger of voting against what they're for and for what they're against because of the inordinate success of our opponents in talking things to death and confusing things. But the fog is beginning to clear in America. Twenty-one months ago, you sent me to Washington to try to change this country. To make government work for ordinary people, to bring the economy back, to make the world more peaceful and more prosperous, and basically to make us feel like we were going in the right direction again, and that we were coming together again, that we could recover the American dream, that we could get to the next century with all the children in this room looking at America's best days ahead of us. And I come here to tell you that we've still got a long way to go, but America's in better shape than it was 20 months ago. And I know there are a lot of people who want jobs who still don't have them. I know there are a lot of people who are working hard who haven't gotten a raise. I know that another 1 million Americans in working families lost their health insurance last year. I know we still have crime problems and social problems, but I ask you to think of this. The social problems, the crime, the drugs, the family breakdown, the things that are gripping this country, they've been developing over 30 years. The economic stagnation of working people, wage earners, has been a problem for 20 years. We had 12 years of trickle-down economics, of failed economic policy that ignored the problems or made them worse. And in 21 months, we've got more jobs, lower deficit, the government working for ordinary people, a serious assault on crime. We're moving in the right direction. We don't need to turn back now. We need to go forward into the future. I believe most Americans, without regard to their party, support the family and medical leave law. I believe they do. In Massachusetts alone, 1.25 million working people in Massachusetts alone can now take some time off when there's a baby born or a family member sick or an elderly person in trouble in your family without losing your job. I believe most people are for it. Well, we voted for it. Most of them were against it. I believe most people in this state and this country think the Brady bill is right, think it is right that we're immunizing all the children in this country under the age of 2 by 1996. Believe it is right to expand Head Start. I believe they like these things. These are the changes we are bringing. I believe most people in this country think that Senator Kennedy's bill to provide national service, to give kids a chance to work in their communities and solve problems at the grassroots level and earn money for a college education is a good thing that looks to the future. It is not a relic of the past. I believe most people in this country like the fact that we have reformed the student loan program and made 20 million Americans eligible for lower interest rates and longer repayment terms on their college loans for middle-class Americans. In 840,000 people in Massachusetts alone eligible to benefit from this program immediately. I think most Americans are for it. Every single Republican in the United States Congress voted against it, and we gave it to the United States, and I think the people are with us and not with them. I believe most people in the United States think it was right for us to lower the taxes of 15 million working families, people working full-time with children in the home because they had modest wages. No one should work full-time and raise kids and be in poverty. We can do better than that. I think people are for that. In Massachusetts, 184,000 working families had their taxes lowered under our economic plan, and every one of the members of Congress of the opposite party voted against it. Now, they said if our economic approach passed, instead of what we said, the deficit would explode and jobs would go away. That's what they said. Well, we've had plenty of time now, and what have we got? It was the Democrats, not the Republicans, under our approach, that reduced the size of the federal government, that lowered the deficit 3 years in a row for the first time since Truman, that oversaw an economic recovery that produced 4.6 million new jobs and a 2.5-point decline in the unemployment rate in Massachusetts alone. They were wrong in what they said. Now, do we still have problems? You bet we do. There are still environmental challenges. There's still political reform. There is still welfare reform. And yes, there is still health care reform to face. But you should vote for the agents of change, not the agents of yesterday. You know, I want to tell you something, folks. The ironies of this election continue to abound. Imagine this. Suppose Massachusetts had a Republican senator. Wait. No, listen. No, suppose Massachusetts had a Republican senator who had voted for legislation to make the federal government the smallest it's been since John Kennedy was president, to reduce the deficit 3 years in a row, for an economic recovery that it produced an explosion of new jobs, for the toughest crime bill in a generation to be paid for by reducing the federal government, not with new taxes, the Republicans would be building a statue to this person. They should be building one to Ted Kennedy because that's what he voted for. So when you hear them spouting their liberal epithets, you know, liberal, 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 you say, all we know is you guys didn't reduce the size of the federal government, we did. You guys talked about a crime bill, we passed one. You guys badmouthed the deficit, we lowered it. You guys talked about the economy, our economy is coming back. Let us reward the agent of change. Let us reward people like Senator Ted Kennedy. Now, let me ask you this. I want you to draw this clear contrast. I was talking to several people just in the last week about Senator Kennedy, you know, because they say, oh, he's been there too long. I'll tell you something. You talk to anybody in Washington of either party who will tell you the truth, and they will tell you two things about your senator. Number one, there is not a single solitary member of the United States Senate more interested in new ideas than he is. New ideas for the economy, new ideas for education, new ideas for the future. And the second thing they will tell you is that in the most partisan atmosphere in modern history, he is absolutely the ablest member of the Congress at getting Republicans to vote with him and work with him to make this country a better place. Now that is the choice you face. A program that's working, new ideas, an approach that is fair to people of all parties. What is the alternative? Look at what they did in the last weeks of the legislative session. They said no to environmental legislation. They said no to political reform. The Republican senators, killed the Superfund bill to clean up toxic waste dumps. Everybody in America was for it. The chemical companies, the labor unions, the Sierra Club. We never had a bill that all those people agreed on. They couldn't agree on when the sun comes up in the morning. There was nobody in America against the Superfund bill except more than 40 Republican senators. And why? Because they would have rather left the poison in the ground than let Ted Kennedy come home and say he helped to clean it up. That is wrong. We can do better than that. We must go forward. We can do better. And let me tell you this. You take this contract on America they put out very seriously, and you look at it, you look at what it does. They promise you, listen to this, it sounds great. Made my ears perk up when I heard it. Give us power. Give us power, and we will increase defense, revitalize Star Wars, give everybody a tax cut, mostly to the wealthy, but we'll tell you about that later, and balance the budget. Presto. Does that sound familiar? It's $1 trillion deal. Now, folks, this is election year. It is almost election time. I would love to make you $1 trillion worth of promises. Man, with $1 trillion worth of hot checks, I could show everybody in this house a good time tonight. We could have a good time. But the job of people in responsibility is to do right, not hold out false hopes. It is not to sacrifice the future of our children to give people a quick fix today. This is wrong, this contract, and we must say it is wrong, and we must vote against it, and we must stand against it. This is wrong. If you let them do this, they will take us back to where, you remember what it was like in Massachusetts and New England in the 80s? They will explode the deficit. You'll have cuts in Medicare. You won't have any more statements like I'm helping you with your water rates or your sewer rates. They will never fund this crime bill to bring the police to the streets of your communities to make them safer. These things will not happen. We'll start shipping jobs overseas again, and they'll put the economy right back in the ditch all the time trying to find somebody else to blame. Stand up against this contract. Stand up against the naysayers. Stand up for somebody who said yes to America, yes to the future, yes to our children. Don't go back. Re-elect Ted Kennedy. Stand up for America. Go to the future. God bless you. We can do it. Thank you.
This has been a Channel 8 special report.